Welcome to the Wild Ones podcast, where we work in our love daily. You can find the Wild Ones podcast on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Anchor FM, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So make sure you like, subscribe, follow, and leave a comment. Whew, that was a mouthful. I am your host, Chris Cox, and let's get wild. Today's guest is amazing. He is a content creator, consultant, and advocate, as well as the founder of Boss Locks Media, which you can find at www.bosslocksmedia.com. Walt is a content strategist helping brands to build communities and align their ideal customers through content creation. Earlier in his career, Walter launched a show, Boss Locks, which aims to create a support system for early career professionals working while Black. After realizing that he was feeling discouraged about his own career trajectory, Walt hoped that his show could help support others who felt like they didn't belong due to their hairstyle or the color of their skin. So right now, the Wild Ones podcast, I would love to welcome to the show Walt Gaynor II.
Yo, thank you, man. Thank you. I'm really excited to be a part of this. I love everything. Like, I love the mission behind the show, the energy. Like, this is really beautiful thing you're putting together. So thank you for letting me be a part of this, man.
Oh, no problem. Believe me, when I started to put this together, there was a few people that I had in mind, and you were definitely one of them. And I wanted to get you on, and I love your mission of normalizing working while Black. And people don't really understand that. We just think of it all, well, it's just what we have to do as being a person of color. It's just what we have to deal with. It's just what our world is. But actually bringing this or bringing that dynamic to the attention of the masses, but also building a safe space that says, here, if you need guidance or if you want to talk about what it means to be working while Black or working while a person of color, here you are. Here's the space. So I just think that's dope, man. I love it. And I'm glad you're on the show, and I can't wait to go to a deep dive on that.
Yes, here for the deep dive. I can't swim, but I could go deep in this topic. I'm ready.
Good. As long we'll just get you right up to here. We'll get you right up to the nose. Just stand on your tippy toes. You'll be all right. Well, my first question is, what started you down the road of content creation? Not necessarily Boss Locks, but just what started you down that content creation road?
I love that. I think I've been a guest on several shows. People usually ask, how'd you start Boss Locks? But the content creation piece is a much longer journey. And I think the further I go in this journey, I realize just how far it goes back. So I would say the very first time I ever did anything content related was kindergarten or elementary school. It's all a blur at this point, but my friend's family's dad, he always had some type of tech equipment thing. And one time he brought a video camera and he had this like software to do some editing. And so he took us all to the beach. Grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, beach all the time. And we were doing some type of Power Rangers ninja type. We're beating up bad guys with our superpowers type of thing. And he's just recording us and we just like fight. And then afterwards he added some effects. So there's all these different flashes and things like that. So that's actually the very like earliest moment of content creation. And then throughout my life, I've had different experiments I've done. So like later on in elementary school, I reenacted this Dust Bowl reporter type of thing where I was reporting on the grounds, like back in the Great Depression areas, just pretending I was there speaking to people. Even had someone like spray me with a hose to add some type of effect to it to get people laughing. And then, but when I really started like truly experimenting, like intentionally, that was in college. It was both for this class that I had, journalism and mass communications class, where it was all about using storytelling through content. And that's where we learned about just how far back communication goes and the power of storytelling, how like songs and stories are used to convey information in a particular way that you would remember it, like the rhymes and everything allow people to remember what was going on so they wouldn't just forget. Because you could just straight up just talk to people all day, every day, but truly getting people to remember what it is you're talking about, that takes a special skills. We're learning about how people did that all throughout time, getting into journalism and the different ways you can actually create stories. And so they had us even diving into podcasts and stuff like that. And that was 2015, 2016. We did that course. So that's when I was actually creating content for a purpose. And then afterwards, of course, also had Snapchat. And I created all these different shows. I'll tell you in the different podcasts, but yeah, just getting into like just recording people consensually during just like weird times and just asking them straight up questions, like popping up like, yo, what's up? We're here right now. Tell us what's going on. And yeah, it was like my little Snapchat TV show that I did. I wish I recorded them. I never recorded any, like saved anything. So it was just like somewhere in the Snapchat database I can't access. But that was like my first real like episodic content I created.
That's what's up, man. I enjoy that you went back that far for your journey. And that's kind of why I asked the question. Because sometimes you just see where someone's at. You know, you see where they're, I'm on Instagram, I'm on YouTube, I'm on whatever, you see where they're at. But it's nice to know where that spark comes from,
Mhm.
because that's what really, to do this, to tell stories, whether using podcasting or just audio, or telling stories, writing them down, or telling stories using video, you have to have a spark. You have to have a want to do it, a want to listen to other people, and a want, to put yourself out there for people to listen to you. I mean, you can get real sensitive. Like, you put yourself out there,
Mhm.
and it's like, oh man, I hope they like what I'm saying. I hope they like the message that I'm trying to give. So you have to have that spark. And for me, it was very similar. I love movies. I love movies. I love anime. I love watching things that people create and how they can evoke an emotion using something like music or lighting or the speed of the camera. And the same thing for me. I went to school originally for mass communications. So I worked at a radio station. We did videography and learning editing, I think, on like very first Final Cut Pro and then Avid. So this was 2002, 2003. So this is way back in the day. And that spark kept with me, which is why I'm in this seat talking in front of this microphone now. So I appreciate you talking about that spark. And so now you've done your episodic Snapchats, right? And you're like, man, I want to do this. I don't know how to do this. I want to do this. So you're doing your episodic Snapchats. Where are you? Are you in like corporate culture? Or are you in, are you working a 9 to 5? What are
Well, I'm
you
still in
doing at this time? You're
college.
still in college at
Still
this
in
time.
college.
Okay.
Yeah, having no idea what was coming next, but I was just enjoying and creating on Snapchat.
Okay. And then so after college, when you leave college, tell me what was your direction? Where were you at? What were you feeling when you leave college?
I was terrified because you're immediately thrown into the world like, hey, all right, cool. It's time. You got about what, 6 months to pay back those loans. You got to figure out life, got to pay for rent, all these things. So, yeah, college was probably like one, like actually graduation day was one of the most, I think, just like weird moments of feeling true. Like, yo, I don't actually know where I'm going. Realizing that a lot of people you went to school with, you're probably not going to see them again, maybe one or two other times in your year or in your life. And then also, I went to a school like 3 states away from me, and I wasn't staying in that city after I graduated. So I was going back home, and I was like, yeah, I don't really know where my future is. So from searching for jobs to figuring out like, okay, how do I actually get a job that aligns with my degree? I could get a job here or there, but I'm trying to get into like the corporate settings and all that. And then on top of everything, it's like, okay, I understand applying. Some companies asking for an interview. How do I actually navigate that? I'm black, I have locks, and at that time I felt like they were hindrances. And it wasn't just me thinking that, right? It's like all these different stories you hear growing up, just what you know about having to navigate just life as a person who's not white. And then also that same year, the US Circuit District Court had ruled that companies are legally allowed to not hire someone, dismiss someone from the application process just because of their hairstyle. And I was, I had locks since '07, graduated 2016. I don't know the math. I guess that's what, oh, no, 9 years at that time. So I was like, yeah, I'm not going to cut them, especially not for a job, right? Like I've already had a job in a setting where I wasn't supposed to have locks and they didn't fire me. They actually gave me a raise at one point because they knew I was good at my job. So I knew that if I could get to like past the interviews, I'd be straight. But I was very insecure about the whole interview process, applying, put the resume together, and then also just like feeling comfortable being me and not having to change who I am at all. So that was me first few months. It took me about 3 months to get the first job after graduating. And I remember like asking my dad, actually, I think I might have asked him first, like, okay, so if I go into the interview, how should I wear my hair? My dad's bald. He grew up in like not grew up in it, but went to the military, clean cut bald, like all of my life. He's always been clean shaved head. I used to have a shaved head as well. So he was just like, yeah, I don't know. He understood, of course, but he's like, yeah, I don't know how to do that. That's an interesting predicament. I don't know if I can help you with that. Like you could give me advice on how to conduct yourself, hold yourself, all these things, but hair, not that much. So at that time, I was feeling insecure, feeling discouraged. And I remember reaching out to a few people who I did know who had locks or in professional environments. And that was both the beginnings of what Boss Locks was going to be and um, beginnings of my career journey as well.
Great. That's so. It's great in a sense that it helped you. Okay, it put the seed in your head of okay, I need to start something on my own because this isn't it. Like the immediacy of like, nope, this may not be the path because of what you're asking me to do. You're asking me to essentially deny myself to become more like you, and that's, I mean, fundamentally, no one wants to really do that. Everyone wants to be an individual in some way. And so to make someone feel like they're less than because of how they rock their hairstyle, for some people, it's unimaginable. For us, it's everyday life. Like my father was very big, like I'm growing my hair out now, see, because I plan to get locks as well. I'm like, I've
Yeah,
never done I've never that's the one style I haven't rocked. And I'm getting older and I'm like, okay, I really can't rock braids. I mean, I don't feel like going and getting done all the time. So I need something that's once it's done, it's permanent. So that's the goal for me, is getting mine locked. But when I was younger, I had braids a lot. Grow my hair and braid my hair. And speaking of my dad, my father would tell me when it would get done, man, your hair looks nice. It looks nice like that. 2 seconds I took him out. My mom was like, you can't be walking around like that. You can't be looking crazy. You got to get something done with your hair. You got to look, you got to look professional. You got to look clean, or you got to look presentable. That was his favorite word. You got to look presentable.
yeah.
And I didn't understand why at the time. I just thought my dad was like on me, just hassling me. But it was because of that. It was because he understood people were going to judge me by what my hair looked like, you know, and they were still going to judge me with having braids because, the stigma of being a black dude with braids. They were going to judge me with that. But at least it looked uniform and it was neat and it looked like I was taking care of myself. But as soon as you take your hair out, then it looks like you're not taking care of yourself. Then it looks like you're not presentable. Then it looks like you are more likely to be a thug, or et cetera, et cetera. So there's so many connotations that come along with black hair before you get to beautiful. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many connotations that are like all negative before you get to one positive thing about black hair. So to see that negative feelings, aspect of you looking for work or looking for a job or being in those corporate interviews, to see the positivity of it, say, okay, maybe I can start something, or maybe I can create my own lane. Man, that's awesome, and more power to you. So how did you? So now we're kind of moving into boss locks. How did that start off? Like, we kind of knew the feeling and the impetus, but how does it start jumping in and say, okay, I'm going to start my own thing? Like, how
Yeah,
was that?
that's a good question because I was resistant to starting my own thing actually. Even though I was starting to reach out to people, I was resistant. I think one major thing that's been a constant presence throughout my whole life, even now, and I'm just now understanding that it was all there, was experiencing anxiety. And I think there's probably only one time that I know that I had anxiety attack, but that anxiety has been present just along the whole journey. In addition to that, feelings of imposter syndromes, all these different things, but it all comes back down to anxiety. So my initial goal wasn't to start anything. I did have a goal to start a whole marketing agency, media, getting into content, but it wasn't going to be anything around necessarily being black or the black experience. I was heavily watching Gary Vee videos. And I was like, yeah, I'm about to be Gary Vee, Black Gary Vee. Here I come, YouTube. What's up? But I think as I started just getting a bit deeper into, I had this mission to find black CEOs with locks who were running big times corporations because I had some friends had challenged me because they were trying to get me to cut my locks too, not out of hate, out of love, which is like a whole other thing we could tackle or dive into as well. But they kind of challenged me. Okay, yeah, we know you want to go to the corporate route, be a big CEO. Can you name one CEO who has locks and didn't start off in entertainment? Because we already know all the athletes and artists who become business owners, and they're great. That's a like really great role model. Like I personally love to see it, but I think it's also important to see people who look like you who didn't come from fame, who truly did build and had to navigate things the same way I may have to. So I didn't know anybody who fit that criteria. And then I also realized that the only person who I can name off the top of my head who was a well known CEO leading businesses and all these things was Damon John from Shark Tank. I was like, wow, only one person, like all these different people that I follow on Instagram, YouTube, all of these things. I learn a lot from them, but they're all white. Not a single person except Damon John was black. I was like, okay, that's a problem right there. I need to change that around. So it was me just getting deeper into finding black people who looked like me in these leadership positions to learning how I can navigate professional environments, grow my career. And then also this other thing I didn't know was happening was like slowly building up my confidence. So it was as far as like when I decided, okay, maybe I could turn this into something. It was my dad who really pushed me. Like each person had a conversation with like, oh yeah, this is big, this is big. And I was like, okay, yeah, yeah, it's cool. It's a cool project. You know, I'm learning. But my dad really shared just how many other people could benefit from this as well. So I started recording it, recording the conversations, reaching out to different people from literally all over the country, seeing if they'd be interested in it. And it took me about, I think, like 2 years to be like, okay, I think I'm ready to actually turn this into something. And then a whole another year before I'd even launch the podcast. But that final year was actually a really big point in time from 20 the year, yeah, 2019. That was a really big year for the show. Just really stepping out into creating a brand, a visible brand, Instagram, starting to grow a small community, getting featured in Voyage ATL article that was the true beginnings of the public side of Boss Logs.
Man, that's dope. And I want to say it again because I know you said it. 3 years, correct? 3 years for everything to kind of really come to fruition. And I want to make sure people hear that. That's why I kind of stopped on that, because now everything is immediacy. Everything is, oh, once I get on Instagram, I gotta blow up. If I don't have 600 followers by tomorrow, then it's over with. I'm a wash. I'm a waste. I can't do it. I can't cut it. If my podcast doesn't get 200 downloads from the first one, then I'm not doing podcasting no more. And I think people lose sight of it. They lose sight that this is essentially the long game. You have to build an audience from nowhere. Like you said, who do you know in podcasting that's super huge that didn't already have a following, right? And so people get into this podcast game, or they get into this just business of trying to create content, and they expect to be a success overnight. And I love how you said it. And it wasn't like, oh man, it took 3 years. It was like, yeah, I went out, I contacted people, I built it from the ground up. And then by year 3, I started the show. Like, you perfected it or got it to where you were real comfortable with it. You got the show, you got episodes coming out, and then people in your community are noticing you. And that's huge, 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 huge. Because not just kids that get on social media. It's adults. It's people in the pandemic who are like, oh, I want to start a podcast. I want to do this. I want to do that. And they thought by the end of the podcast they was going to be Joe Rogan. they thought that they were going to be, one of those. They thought they were going to be one of those like podcasts that the true crime podcast that just blow up, and then they make movies out of their podcast. And it's like, no, man, you got to build a following. Like, you got to be consistent. You got to know what you're doing. You got to learn how to edit. You got to learn what mic sounds great with your voice, and there's so much that goes into doing this. So I just really want to point out and applaud that you stuck with it. You didn't just give up and quit. You perfected it, or got it close to being where you were comfortable with it. Like, yeah, this is good. I got something. And then you came out with it. And so I really wanted to showcase that. I want to highlight that, because all of this doesn't take, oh, I'm going to decide on Friday I'm going to do podcast, and then Monday I'm doing it. It takes a little bit, like, you got to learn what you're doing. Like, you got to write an outline. You got to know who you're going to talk to. What's your podcast going to be about? What medium, what channels you're going to get your show out of, and just how are you going to talk in front of the mic? How are you going to be able to convey your message? So again, I'm applauding that you stuck with it. You put 3 years of work into it, and it's showing. And that 3 years of hard work shows, knowing your brand, being, because when I pop on LinkedIn, I see you. So, when I'm on LinkedIn, so I see you, I see your talks and conversations, or when we're looking on social media, I see you, and then all that hard work pays off. And you're welcome. I want to touch back on something, because you said that you have friends out of love that were trying to get you to conform or get you to cut your hair. How did you process that?
That's a good question, because I think that I haven't always known how to advocate for myself. I knew how I felt. I was always good at sticking to what I felt. So even at that time, I was telling them, like, nah, you don't quite understand. But I didn't really know how to help them to understand either. But I think that's something that's present in a lot of communities. But I could speak to the Black community and this was a group of friends of a lot of different cultures. But one thing that's common is that in your own circle, there's oftentimes people who will do things out of fear or project their own fears onto you, your family, your friends, all these different things. Sometimes it comes from a lack of understanding or just lived experiences. Like, it's very easy to think that really good advice is to cut your locks, because then you won't have that hindrance. You'll be able to get a good job. And I will say my hair has been something that other people in a hiring position have felt insecure about, or it could also be the color of my skin. Sometimes when you're Black, it's hard to tell if people aren't like out loud about it. So I remember in that moment, I was like, I understand why you're sharing this, because by not cutting my locks, I'm accepting that I might have to experience some things that just things won't go my way, or people may react negatively to me. Um, but I also remember at that time, I was like, I'm growing my hair for me, not really for other people. I always love the praise. I accept the praise. Please come through, tell me how beautiful they are. But this is kind of for me because I really appreciate how I am with the locks. It means something to me. I didn't quite understand what it meant to me, but I knew it meant something to me. So it was kind of like, I hear you, I feel you, but nah. And hopefully one day I'll be able to show you or tell you why I'm not going to cut them.
So have your locks now, could you say that you've transitioned to where at one point it was a sense of insecurity to now your locks are like a sense of strength, like that outward, it's your outward showing of your conviction, like, you know, like
Absolutely.
you're as strong as the locks, and I'm not cutting them, so I know I can follow through. If I say I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do something. Like, do you think that your hair is turned into that, maybe even subconsciously for you?
Yeah, I think yes. And also I think my hair has helped me to learn all those things, right? Because I think your hair is at the very beginning, but it takes a while for you to get there. So I think in addition to that, I would say that it also teaches me the process isn't always overnight, like you're talking about before. Sometimes it takes some time. Like my hair, like Snoop Dogg, for example, he got locks and all of a sudden his hair is like longer than mine, and he's been growing them for I've had locks longer than he has, but his hair is long and all of these things. Like I've learned that just like everyone's hair grows at different rates, and also how much care you put into them also contributes to how they grow, the length they grow, how strong they are, all of these things. So I think it also teaches you about patience and true care and intention, a lot of different things. So yes, absolutely, strength, confidence allowed me to just or it being an extension of who I am internally, even if I don't see myself that way.
Or that's real deal. That's if when you talk about dropping knowledge, that's what it is. When you really listen to that. So everybody who's out there listening, please replay that section on what Walt just said. Because that's real deal, like love and inspiration coming through what you're saying. And with that, how do you take that feeling or that processing? Like, you know, your hair is your strength, and now it's taught you how to be comfortable in your own skin and how to be strong in your own skin. How do you take that now into your, you know, working while black? And how are you counseling other people or other companies or corporations, or just workforce areas? How are you taking that message to them?
Mhm. I'm a couple ways. One, I'm very much so a I'm not someone to tell people what to do. Um if someone asks, I could give them some like things like, oh, you could try this way or that way. But I don't like to tell people what to do just because I just don't enjoy it. And I feel like it's a waste of my time. So oftentimes, um, what I do is kind of like a show and tell almost approach. So just like showing, kind of sharing these stories and kind of creating the space and opportunities for people to kind of lead themselves to this realization. So I mostly focus on individuals. The company side, working with companies to kind of create equitable environments and belonging and stuff like that. Starting to work with them now. But at the moment, I really just create content to help them reach their marketing goals. But for individuals, I really kind of like we were talking about before with stories. Like I really started everything off by not even sharing my own story, but sharing other people's stories. Because I knew that with everyone's story, there's something you could learn from it. It'd be very minuscule to one person, but to someone else could be huge, light changing message. So My podcast has started off with a goal to prove that natural hair and professionalism do coexist. It was, yeah, for hiring managers, but really I was focusing in on Black people. And I wanted to create a show that would help people not only see that there are Black professionals with locks who didn't conform or maybe did conform, but now they're at the point where they're realizing, you know what, I don't need to do this anymore. Because I think once you see that it can be done, then it's like, okay, hold on. They did it. Maybe I could do that too. I think that's something that Black community does very well. It's like show and tell. We see it happen. It's like, okay, bet, all right, it's already happened over there. I could do that too. So that was my goal. Showing, creating the representation that I didn't see previously. And over the past year, what I've been getting into now is truly creating kind of additional resources that align with these stories of Black leaders. They get really into the nitty gritty, the nuances, how to truly navigate. Like I just put out this video about like cheat codes you could use for career growth and just sharing like kind of small things you could do to just level up, you know, when opportunities aren't presented to you, how you can still go after them your own way. Sharing resources on how to navigate certain like awkward situations and also pointing you towards resources and communities that already exist that could just help you so you don't feel alone. So I think that's like the other thing is just making sure people know that they are not alone, even if they don't personally know anybody going through something. They're still like, I mean, there's like billions of people on this planet. What one person experiences, someone else has experiences to some degree as well. So, kind of creating that community so that people don't have to go through things by themselves, try to figure things out by themselves, creating access to groups of people where you can reach out for help or just hear stories about how other people went through this or that. So, that's the approach.
Would you? Because I mean, I'm kind of want to know. I'm curious. What is an example, if you can? Because I know this is your thing. What's an example of like a cheat sheet or something that can help somebody navigate through this world? Something that you have put out there. What's an example of that? Because I'm really curious to actually know what some of those like cheat codes are or just ways to navigate awkward situations. You don't have to give them all, just maybe like one
Yeah.
or two examples, just so people, like you said, people see, they visualize what you're doing.
Yeah. So, Wells Fargo CEO, I think I forgot what year it was, but he was sharing basically why they don't, they haven't really hired a lot of Black people. He shared that there just aren't that many qualified candidates out there. Literally said this, was public about it, a lot of backlash as warranted and all that stuff. So that's obviously like wrong. There's talented Black people everywhere, but there's a problem that exists where this issue of people viewing Black people as inadequate or not qualified or things like that. So something that you could do if you're in this place where people don't really look at you with respect and your abilities is literally just go get a certification. So you have that documentation. Like degrees are great, yes, but sometimes they don't just like they don't really communicate things the way that it should. So like if you're in marketing, for example, there's like 10 different certifications on social media that are like industry standard you could get. Like HubSpot, big time in the marketing world. Hootsuite has a social media certification. So there's all these little things you could get to just right off the bat. Someone's like, I don't know if you can handle the marketing campaign. Like, oh, hold on. No, I can. I actually got certified for it as well. So having that documentation. And then another thing that's kind of awkward and is dealing with microaggressions at work. And now these are anywhere from people literally commenting on your appearances to just not including you in certain things. And all of these are kind of tricky and are different for each person. But one thing that's, if you feel comfortable and you're in a place where you can do this, it's really important just like kind of nip things at the bud. So like people wanting to touch your hair and get all in it like it's a petting zoo. Like Literally,
Man.
what I personally do, and this is just for my own enjoyment to try and make other people feel awkward as well, is tell people like if they like try to touch it or ask if they could touch it, like literally asking or saying like, yeah, if you wash your hands, you could touch it. No one's gonna go wash their hands, but they feel awkward and they start to realize, oh, maybe that's not a good question. But then, for other people, they just straight up be like, yeah, no, you cannot, and kind of going into why. So really finding a place where you could communicate it. And then oftentimes there's a lot of weird compliments that people give and just kind of getting to a point where you could literally say or finding a way to say that that's not a compliment. That's one of my favorite things I've heard someone say, like, that you may think that's a compliment, but it's not. It's insulting. All these things and taking people through this process. Now, these things are great for people who maybe are not trying to um, not trying to cause any harm. They just are ignorant or they just don't have a lot of interaction around Black people. So they're actually feeling a little awkward and insecure, but they want to create this space, but they just mess up. So some of these things are just like kind of like putting up a quick, like, yo, chill, stop, and correct yourself type of thing while not um, putting you in a place where you're now the crazy, angry Black
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
But when it comes to people who are truly like borderline racist, and if you beat Black people as less than, that's a little bit trickier because what you're dealing with are people who are having some type of insecurities very deep, deep down that they haven't processed yet and projecting it onto you. And for those situations, you got to walk a little bit more carefully. And it's really important to try to document literally anything. If there's any type of like email communication or any verbal exchanges that went in, sometimes you're not going to win those small battles, but you just kind of document what you can and then just literally taking it to HR. Um, you really have to do that immediately, or people are just going to continue to treat you like you're nothing type of thing. And sometimes, to be honest, what sucks is that you don't always win those battles. So for me, I'm very big on like if the environment's not working for you, find a different one if you can. These toxic work environments, even if you get past the racism or any discrimination, there's going to be other layers of toxicity that everyone experiences. And so it's really important to do whatever you can to create this safe environment for you in the environment you're in, or um, seek a better place.
And I think that has a lot because what you're saying is like pure gold. Because I know for my son and my son's mixed race, like my son and my daughter, they are Afro Latino, right? So my wife is from Guatemala, and
All sorts of questions. So
yeah, people used to want to touch my son's hair, like, because it would be curly and like random people in the store, like, because I live in the Midwest, so it's rural, but it's changing. And then, like you said, that I don't understand how it's changing. I'm not 100% like racist. I just don't know because I haven't had a lot of interactions. So that looks different to me. So I want to touch it, kind of thing, which is your comment going back to like we're in a zoo, which is where it's not a compliment that you are fascinated by my hair. Like you just want to touch it because it's so odd and different. That's not necessarily a compliment. I'm not on show or on display. But he got to the point for a long time he wanted his hair like cut low. He didn't want it to get curly. He just wanted to fade, so it just looked. So nobody wanted to touch it because it wasn't curly or thick or whatever it is. And for a long time he didn't want people touching his hair. Even like family friends, they would just pat his head. Please don't touch my hair. And he was like 6. He was like 5 or 6. Don't touch my hair. And they were like, what? What's going on? Well, I don't want you to touch my hair because people keep messing with my hair. And had a lot of issues with his hair, which coincidentally, which is why I grew out my hair, because he wanted a certain type. He goes to school and there's more Spanish speaking kids who are like full Latino, full either Guatemalan or full Mexican or full Puerto Rican, and so their hair is kind of straight and thin. So he wanted his hair like that and not thick and curly. And so I was like, well, we got to figure out how to change that thought process. So I grew my hair out. and that has really changed the way he looks at hair now, because sees dad with, afro, or he sees me pick it out, or he sees the stuff that I put in it, so that really changed and made a safe space for him. And what you're doing, making a safe space for people all over who experience that, is such a powerful thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're listening and you really don't understand what it's like to have someone give you a backhanded compliment, and it's not really a compliment, and in days or years before, you just kind of eat it and be like, all right, whatever, whatever, Trevor. You would keep it moving. And I think now, with people like you, and especially what you're doing, is creating that safe space and giving them these tips and how to navigate. I think more people are taking that leap and saying, I don't need to be in this toxic environment, because it's not always our job to teach you how to not be toxic. Like, there's Google, there's books, there's more than just your local black person. You can figure out how not to be toxic now in this world. And it gets very pressing on us, people of color, to always have to explain why someone else shouldn't do something.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you creating this space to allow people to express and learn, man, listen, you are doing such a wonderful thing. And I wish all of the greatness on you, because what you're doing is helpful not only for our generation, but for the kids coming up behind you, the kids that are in college now, or high school now, or middle school now and beyond. Hearing someone talk about their process, or hearing someone talk about their situation, and giving them that representation, like, yeah, I can do it too, I see him doing it, I can do it, or I don't have to be in somewhere toxic. You're doing a wonderful thing.
Just say one thing. I appreciate that, but I love that, because that's actually like who I'm doing it for. Like right now, short term, helping people who are like in their careers now, or beginning to enter into their career. But really, I'm working on building up this whole resource archive for the people who are just playing in sandboxes right now and growing up, so that by the time they're having these difficult conversations, it's like, oh no, I was watching Boss Logs, right? Someone gets give them like, yo, send them this video. It covers all the things you're talking about now, because like it's like the world is changing, and it's like the world is changing, which is great, but there's a lot of problems that still exist, and I feel like there's going to exist for at least another generation, and that's just like the surface level problem. So it's like creating something that can last forever, just so that people have that something to fall back on. It's like the it's like
Like
the
a
jetpack that could keep you
uh,
going if you can't like fly anymore.
you're like a time capsule. You be able to, people can open it up, watch a video, watch something, because it's gonna live. Excuse me. It's gonna live forever on the internet. And like you said, some kid could be watching it later on, or someone that you helped individually now has that strength and now has that structure to be able to help their children or help their family. And I mean,
Right.
awesome. So kudos to what you're doing. I want to ask, because we talked to, like you said, when you're helping, or you're leaving these tips, or you're leaving this information for others to feel safe, or how to feel safe, or how to navigate their environments. And you talk about leaving the toxic environment. Like, you don't have to stay there. Like, money isn't everything. Like, you can move on. How I want you to talk about, like, what was it like for you saying, I'm going to create this environment, And second question on top of that is, do you think the fact that there's you and others who are trying to create these safe spaces, do you think that's going to lead to more entrepreneurship among people of color?
Good questions, man. Good question. See, how do I feel about creating these spaces? I, I feel aligned. I would say that I feel aligned. It feels good to put something out. And all right, so I guess here's a good way of putting it. Like, when you create content, the goal is to get as many eyes on it as possible, or at least the right eyes on it as possible. And like get numbers, all these things. A lot of creators are looking for brand deals, going viral, having millions of followers. All that stuff is nice. I'm not saying I don't want that stuff, but what feels really good is when you put something out and someone comments, "Oh, this is really helpful. Oh, this actually helped me," and they kind of share this little bit of why it was helpful, or "Oh, okay, yeah, I feel that. That's a good point." That feels really good because it's one, reassuring that what you're creating is needed. And when you're like dealing with anxiety and imposter syndrome, those are things that could come up at different periods of time. So it's always good to have that type of feedback. But then two, it's just feels good to create something that helps someone and for them to immediately recognize that that is helpful or it's helping them real time. Like I created this video like how to leave your job gracefully, like without flipping tables or like giving a finger to your boss and all that stuff. And someone reached out and was like, okay, yeah, you know what? I'm actually preparing to put in my notice. This is actually really timely and really helpful as well. So thank you. And this is someone I had no interactions with. As far as I know, they don't follow me. They just happen to come across the video. And so things like that feel really good and kind of motivate me to continue to create. Um, it also feels good because I know where I want to be. And even if I'm feeling kind of insecure, discouraged, all these things, I still know where I want to be and I know the path to get there. So it's all like just helping to put the oil in the engine, just keep going and maybe go a little faster, and things like that. Um, and then I forgot what's the second part to your question?
The second one was, how do you think your work is going to, like your work and others'
Oh,
work,
with entrepreneurship.
how is that going to affect more entrepreneurship among people of color?
Oh man, yo, like as of right now, recording this, I work full time. As I'm creating this content and interviewing all these people, I'm like, yo, this entrepreneurship thing. Let me really see what that's about. And one, I could say that out loud because I found a place where entrepreneurship doesn't scare management or leadership, CEO, none of them. I was asked like on the first day, like, what are some of your goals? I was like, yeah, Shark Tank level stuff, owning own businesses, owning own media company. Like, okay, cool. That sounds amazing. So I can say that out loud, one. But two, um, a lot of answers to the problems that we face really is entrepreneurship. And it's not just being able to like go out and get all the flashy things, becoming like super rich and all this stuff to go out and flex on everybody or be super famous or anything like that. Like I truly feel that entrepreneurship is a legitimate, real way of doing the thing you care about. And then also one thing that's interesting in the Black community is just how, I mean, it's present in all communities, but just because I spend a lot of time focusing there, just seeing how often Black people are creating something that has a cultural or social impact. Like a lot of people are out here looking to create a business so they can either put money in their own pockets and help people, or just be put them in a position to help people as well. So it's like a very communal focus. Growing in a career is another way to reach wealth through salaries, legitimate way, but entrepreneurship has just so much room for positive impact. I mean, putting us in a place where we don't have to ask, we don't have to wait. We can start to govern ourselves to a certain degree. It's truly creating all these opportunities to create the things that our community has been missing. Like, how many people do you know, like, starting to there's a lot of people creating these like wellness based businesses, focus on the Black community, helping people to overcome all this trauma, taking care of themselves, access to this healing and like health that we're creating access to health that wasn't there before. People in education, creating learning opportunities, people like yourself, creating access to media, like being able to have hands-on experience doing things that you would have to either pay thousands of dollars to get yourself or be in the right rooms to experience it. Cause like you were saying, you were able to restudy mass communications. You talked about the software you created. Like I had that same opportunity, but the software we're using was a lot different. We're dealing in iMovie. That's different from the software you were dealing with. So like you creating what you're creating right now is just doing like wonders. Like the ripple effect that that's going to have on people is like exciting just to think about. So when I think about what I'm doing right now is like showing people what people are already doing, talking about a lot of the issues that we're facing and some of the solutions that people are bringing to the table right now. And the answer to a lot of it is entrepreneurship or creating resources that are equally as helpful.
So what my man Walt is saying is go start something.
Start
Don't
anything.
Yes, don't wait. Don't sit in the office that you don't like listening to the dude across from you like saying some wild stuff. Get out. It's gonna take some time. Get out there, figure out what you can do that's gonna help yourself, help the community, and do it. Be a change agent. Be out there. Be in the community. Do something that you know is needed. We don't need just one Walt. We need like 10. We need 15, 20. I interviewed a gentleman the other day, and one of the questions were, well, how do you feel if he owns a restaurant and there's a lot of other similar restaurants around him? And he was like, I don't worry about that. He's like, there's enough out here for all of us. He's like, if you're really going to work at your craft, someone's going to be better than someone else. Yes. But that's how you distinguish yourself. I don't have to sell something different. I just have to put my all into it, and that's going to be the difference. So it's enough. If there's another person that wants to do what I'm doing or do what you're doing, please go out there. Be a part of the community. Show access. Representation matters. Because, hopefully in 5 years, you and I are still doing what we're doing. 10 years, we're still doing what we're doing. And we have another group of kids maybe watching this, or seeing it or watching an episode or something that we're doing. And they're like, oh, they're doing it. I can do it too. And then now Walt is now that CEO with locks that his friends were challenging him to look for. So now you're that guy. Now no one has to challenge, oh, well, find me a CEO that's got locks that didn't start off in something else. Now you're that person. Now no one can challenge someone else because you stepped up to it. And so I would like to think that all of the work you're doing is leading to that, is dismissing that challenge for the table, or taking away that I want to help you by taking away all your problem, and your problem is your hair, so let's take it all away. No, let's keep moving and grooving with it. Let's build something with it. Like I shouldn't have to change who I am on a fundamental level, because if you get hair, if you get locks, you have to be fundamentally prepared for it, because you have to grow it, you have to take care of it, you have to nurture it, and it's a long process. And no one should ever have to change that about themselves or go back on their fundamentals just to get a paycheck. So right. You are representing the best of us out there, my friend.
Thank you. And one other thing, you brought a really good point. Like people all across the board are afraid of competition, afraid of having their ideas stolen. But to me, it's like, that's just proof of concept. Like if someone else wants to do the exact same thing, it's like, okay, great. You could leverage that. Like when I started, my goal was to make hair discrimination basically illegal. I know how to do that. I went to college for communication, and then the Crown Act started. And at first I was like, okay, maybe there's no place for me. But then I was like, wait, hold up. I can still do exactly what I'm doing. They can do exactly what they're doing because they're doing something at a whole larger scale that would take me like 10, 20 years to be able to do. They're able to get stuff done now. So I could just switch it up with like, okay, maybe now I could get a little deeper into what I really want to do while still supporting what they're doing as well. So competition is good. You just can't be toxic about it. We have to stop operating from a scarcity mindset, from entrepreneurship to the career, all of that stuff.
Yeah. Don't hate that there's someone doing it. Like, just how do you make yours better? Like, and
Right.
not necessarily better, but how do you separate yourself? You know,
Mm-hmm.
how much effort are you putting into it? Because I mean, to me, as especially as a former athlete, you can hate that somebody may be faster than you or stronger than you, but how much effort are you putting in the weight room? How much effort are you putting in practice? Because I know it takes a lot of effort to complain. Oh, well, they just a good athlete. That still takes a lot of effort to do that. Well, you need to get in the gym. You need to get in the playbook. You need to do this to separate yourself to find what you are good at. And it's hard for people to look in the mirror and say, okay, I may not be good at this, but I'm really good at this. How do I become an expert in this that gets me on the field? You know, and to turn that from sports back into this, what makes me an expert in podcasting? What makes me an expert in content creation? What am I good at that I can focus on that and makes people want to watch me? And I think if we started thinking that way and get out of that, like you said, that scarcity mindset, I mean, the sky's the limit for anybody entering this business and really following their passion.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is almost like full circle because at the beginning we're talking about like overnight success, and it's like the same thing, managing expectations and being
Yes.
realistic with where you are so you can truly move forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I want to say, because if you're watching the podcast, Walt's got a cool shirt hanging in the back. I got to find out how to get that shirt too. It's got a cool shirt in the background that says, I love new growth, right? And that's what we're in this business for. Wild Ones is in this business for growth, meaning we want to celebrate those who are out there working in their passion. And how are they growing their love daily? How are they passing that love on to other people? And while you are out here creating safe spaces and tips for people to navigate spaces that aren't safe, you know, how do you do that while black, while being a person of color? And you're creating that, and you're creating that new growth, which are those other generations that you're talking about, kids in the sandbox. So I just saw the shirt. I think that's dope. And I don't know if that's why that's there. I don't know if that encompasses everything I said, but that's what I thought about when I saw it, man.
It does, man. It's so I love new growth. It's I'm make sure a shirt gets over to you. Like definitely gonna make sure that happens. And it was inspired by the natural hair journey, specifically locks. Just like when I mean, but for those who don't, like when the hair in the black community, when your hair is first growing, they call it the new growth. When you have locks, that new growth doesn't come all polished like the rest of the locks does, and especially when you're first starting, people call it the ugly phase, where hair isn't quite where you want it and looks awkward, sticks up, and all these things that we typically hide it, do whatever we can to polish and make it look perfect. But part of the journey that I just been on personally with this show, but then also what I'm inviting other people on is to truly embrace that new growth, like love it, appreciate it, because there's a lot of beautiful moments in that period. The ugly stage, all these things that are embarrassing and not Instagram worthy. It's a really beautiful place to be when you stop to look. You're like, okay, hold on. Can I really get to where I want to go without going through all of this right now? Like if I just completely skipped the beginning phases of my locks where I was embarrassed when there was one sticking out and it looked like I had an antenna, I may not truly appreciate my locks like I do now. Like there's a whole journey. And so now there's like little pieces that aren't like all the way like twisted into the locks just yet. But it's like, I mean, it's my hair. That's how you know it's real. You can see it. It's right there. So yeah, yeah, it's a part of the whole process is to truly embrace the new growth.
Man, that's dope. That's an amazing message. That's how you know it's real. It's because you can see it. You can see the journey on me. And I think more people need to look at that, whether it's hair, whether it's your scars, whether it's your clothes, whether it's your content, whatever it is, be proud or like my man Walt says, love the new growth. You know what I mean? Love that part of your journey because it's gonna get you to where you have to go. I Beautiful. That's going on there. It's true because you can see it. Love the journey. It's some or I love new growth. Something of that nature is going to be the title of this episode because I just think that is so profound, man. That we need to be able to feel that and really look in the mirror. And it's hard to do. It takes a journey, like you said. It was on your hair journey that you were able to see that and say it's okay that it doesn't look perfect because I gotta go through this part to get to the end part. And then when I get to the end, I'm gonna be happy. And then it's gonna make you better for going through that journey. So man, I am so blessed and very much excited that I have you on this show. And Walt, before we even move off or end the show, I want you to shamelessly plug yourself. I want you to I want you to tell everybody where they can find you, where they can get merchandise. I want people to know how would they get in contact with you and learn these tips, link up with you, work with you, and make the community and spaces that you're growing even larger.
Mm. Thank you, man. Thank you. It's funny, like even as I grow with confidence and everything I do, like the self promo and plugging, I rarely do that. I rarely do that. You could find literally everything I'm doing at bosslocksmedia.com. There's I'm starting to play around on all the different platforms, right? So you can literally find me everywhere that this show exists, everywhere that Chris exists. I'm there. It's the Great Walt, and also Boss Locks. There's also I want to actually open something out to make sure I'm giving the right number.
Go ahead. We want it all. Yes.
All right, yeah. But yeah, on the website, that's the central location for literally everything. And you can literally go there to find it all, the podcast, the videos we do, the work I've been doing on LinkedIn as part of their Creator Accelerator program. So it started launching audio events, live audio events, similar to Clubhouse, but only on LinkedIn. But one thing I just created, just because I realized there's so many different platforms you could go to, all these different things like search this, search that, search this. I created this text community. It's literally just direct communication. Just reach out to it, apply it back with whatever it is you're looking for, whether it's a resource, a replay, access to the podcast. Yo, Walt, what social media platforms do you exist on? What events are you up to? I started a text community because I like email. I have an email newsletter, I have the website for blogs and everything like that. But sometimes you just need a quick, short message, quick, short, and simple. Doesn't need to be polished. Like, yo, podcast right here, new episode right here. So if you text podcast to 914-353-4176, you'll literally get access to everything, anything you need, merch, all that stuff. I partnered with or working with a Black-owned apparel company who actually like manufacturing like designing shirts and everything like that. And they're taking care of like logistics, shipping and all of that. So I'm excited because like Black-owned company doing all this. I had to go through all these other places. It's quality. They actually care about everything they do. They're more excited about the merch than I am, which is crazy. And so I'm doing it through their site. But once again, you can get that by texting podcast to 914-353-4176.
All right. Well, you heard the man. Make sure you text podcast. Make sure you get all the information. Make sure you connect on LinkedIn. Make sure you connect on all the social media platforms. Because if you are a person of color, if you are someone who has struggled with your identity in the workplace, if you've struggled with your hair identity in the workplace, then my man Walt is the person you need to listen to, because he's going to let you know you are not alone in that struggle and you can navigate that struggle and come out stronger than ever. So please, please, please hit my guy Walt up, really show him some love and show the podcast some love. Again, you can find Wild Ones on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Anchor FM, on Spotify, and on YouTube. that is in video and audio format. And you can find us on all these social media channels. And from me, from the Wild Ones, Walt, to you, you are definitely someone who is working in your love daily, and you are 100% a wild one. And I'm so thankful that you've been able to be on this show with me today.
Me too. Me too. Thank you. I know it's we know each other for a while. It's like, oh, we haven't done a podcast yet, but this was the right one. This is the
Yeah.
right one. Perfect time. Appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you too. Thank you for coming out. Again, link up with Walt on the social media. It's the Great Walt or Boss Locks. Boss Locks ENT. Am I correct?
Boss Locks Media.
Boss Locks Media on social. So on social media platforms, it's Boss Lock Media or It's the Great Walt. And you can find me at Wild Ones Podcast. It's WILD one underscore podcast on all social media sites. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow. And as always, stay wild, and we will see you at the next episode. Peace.